thank you again so much for joining us today for our webinar on recruiting in the Philippines, challenges and opportunities for growth. I'm Megan Crone, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at IDP Connect. Before we dive into the webinar, there are just a couple of things to note. So the webinar will be recorded, and a copy of the recording will be sent to all registrants following the webinar. The session will last approximately 20 minutes, and then we'll have an additional 20 minutes at the end of the session for a Q&A. So please drop any questions that you have in the Q&A or the chat function at the bottom of your screen throughout the webinar. Once you close this webinar, a survey will appear. So please do complete the survey if you have time, as this provides us with valuable feedback on how we can improve for future webinars. We will also be hosting further webinars in our Driving Diversity series, so please check your email in the coming days and weeks for invites to those webinars. So again, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today for our second webinar in our Driving Diversity for Your Institution series with a focus on the Philippines. We started this series as diversification is such a key topic for institutions across the country. Canadian post-secondary institutions are trying to diversify their source markets, as well as attract students to programs other than STEM fields and business and administrative studies. International student populations in Canadian post-secondary institutions are still heavily weighted from just a couple of source markets, and the Philippines is one market institutions can work to diversify their student populations with. And as you will see throughout this presentation, there's strong demand from Filipino students for Canada. So during the session, Jojo, who is the country director at IDP Philippines, and Romina, who is the country destination manager for Canada at IDP Philippines, will provide you with on-the-ground insights to help you build your institutional brand and work through both the opportunities and challenges of recruiting Filipino students. So from here, I'm going to pass it over to the team in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning, everyone. We're really excited to be with you today and to share with you more insights about the Philippine market. Romina and I will be co-presenting today. I will be covering the first two sections, mainly an overview of the Philippine market, along with IDP's footprint and presence in the country, then share with you some insights about the competitive profile of Canada in the country. I'll hand it over to Romina, who will be sharing with you results of a recent survey we did for Filipino students and give you insights about their thoughts about studying abroad, then share some challenges and opportunities of working in this country. And lastly, our recommendations that will make you more successful in working in the Philippines. Let me start with an overview of the Philippine study abroad market. First off let me share with you a few factors that I believe will make the Philippines a great opportunity for you to focus on the country. First is the economy is very stable. Post-pandemic, it's really recovered quite well, partly driven by the Filipinos who work abroad and remit money to their relatives. Now, as you will see in the next few slides, that more and more Filipinos are studying abroad, mainly because they have more financial ability to do that, whether by supporting themselves or through a sponsor who is a relative working overseas. We also, since diversification is a focus, we do have a young, diverse population with 40% below 19 years old and living across 7,000 islands who speak 8 main dialects. Since Filipinos do have either friends or family who live overseas, they do have the confidence and the adaptability to live abroad. Next is just a profile of how many Filipinos are currently studying abroad. Based on the different sources that we've checked, there are roughly around 50,000 or over 50,000 Filipinos studying abroad, with main study interests in Australia and Canada. Like what Megan said earlier, Canada has really become a very, very popular study destination for Filipino students. Now, looking into the Philippine-specific market, where are the international students' interests coming from? Well, 40% of which does come from Metro Manila. That's the bulk. However, the interesting thing is the growth of interest in studying abroad is actually prevalent in 9 different regions. And that's actually how IDP has planned our office and footprint expansion. So last year or 2 years ago, we actually started with just 2 offices in the Philippines, mainly in Manila, in Pasig, and in Cebu. And we started with only 10 counselors. Because of the increasing demand for studying abroad, mainly from Canada, we've actually invested in more office footprint this fiscal year or this calendar year, where we actually already have 5 offices and ending with 8 by the middle of this year. Next year, we will be opening actually 4 more offices. I'm not at liberty to share those locations yet, but we've already identified them. So obviously we will be covering all the high potential cities, whether it's existing interest or future potential growth of Filipinos who have interest in studying abroad. Aside from the increase in our footprint, you can see at the bottom the number of counselors that we've actually increased since we started. Now, we've started the journey of introducing Canada as a destination for IDP Philippines, close to 3-4 years ago, where we started with only 4 counselors, and we've invested in Canada as a destination alongside the growth in interest. And the great thing we've seen is we've partnered with a lot of institutions who've joined our events, who've invested in having local representatives in the Philippines. 2 of these things have actually made, and working with us, has made them really very successful in growing the number of students that go to their institutions coming from the Philippines. As we've said earlier, we've invested a lot in really focusing on Canada as a destination. So you see on your screen the really beautiful and talented team that we have focused specifically on Canada. Currently, we do have 19 waiting for the start date of the 20th counselor, and they've actually spread across the different new offices that we've had. And as I stated earlier, the investments in key cities is ongoing. We have a strong leadership team backing that up as well. So we're really very excited and bullish about continuing to sustain the interest and growth of Canada as a study destination for the Philippines. Then I move on to the competitive profile of working in Canada. First off, you saw earlier that Australia and Canada were neck and neck in terms of the number of students studying abroad. However, we've seen a really strong spike in demand for Canada, specifically in the last 3 years. As you can see, the yellow line, the interest for Canada continues to grow, and we're forecasting that to continue on in the next few years. Even as Australia borders opened last year, we did not see a dip in study interest in the Canadian market. As you can see, our investments in increasing our office and counselor capacity have also seen a corresponding increase in the number of applications that we've also served in the Canada market as well. Now, in terms of study interest, the top 5 programs continues to be business, computer science and IT, engineering, and health studies. However, we've really seen the growth of interest in other study sectors as well, or study interests as well. So as more and more Filipinos study abroad, the diversity of courses that they do take is also getting larger and larger. So This gives you a bit of insight in terms of what are the popular study interests that Filipinos may be interested in your institutions. In terms of study destination in Canada, although Ontario has been the most popular by far in recent years, what we've seen as a trend for Filipinos is they're actually willing to study in any region, as more and more of them actually go to other provincial locations, as long as there are opportunities for them for post-study work rights. So, three regions here specifically have been quite popular recently. We've had a lot of recent interactions and workings with institutions in these regions. So by and large, similar to the profile where the Filipino source market is diversifying, the destination regions where Filipinos are going are also diversifying. So as you all know, there are Filipinos all across Canada, and we are willing to go where there are a lot of friends or relatives there as well. Then that's it for me. Let me hand it over to Romina, who will take you off to the next few sections of the presentation. So Ina, I think you're on mute.
Thanks, Jojo. All right, thank you again. So in this slide, we just really wanted to show you guys, even though that earlier Jojo has mentioned that when Australia borders opened, there was really a slight downfall for Canada from 71% to 68%. But you can obviously see that out of the 68%, 35% of those students prioritize Canada. And as you've seen in the new student visa numbers, there's no dip, even when other destinations have opened like New Zealand as well and UK. You can really see that Canada is still #1 and is the top destination of choice for Filipinos. Sorry, Karen, I don't think I have access to change. Is it okay for you to change the slide for me? Thanks. So in this one, we really just wanted to show you that the top 3 reasons for Filipino students in choosing Canada is really the postgraduate work permit or the employment opportunities after their graduation. You can see that 74% of the Filipino students really prioritize the after effect of their study plans or the study pathway, which is really a pathway for them to migrate in Canada. The second and third one is, of course, the quality of education. And surprisingly, it's more of the people in the country. So a lot of the international students in other countries really prioritize other things. But it's really nice to see that for Filipinos, it's really on their future plans in terms of going to that specific destination, which is Canada. So it's quite exciting to see that, the people in Canada and also the opportunities that you create for them is the main reason why they choose the destination. Next slide, please. And here, and if we look into the top 5 reasons why students want to study in a particular destination, you can see that Canada, out of all of the 5 reasons, Canada is still #1, whether it's their welfare or, post-study policies or migration policies, the education that they will have, the opportunities they will get, and of course, the value for money when it comes to choosing a particular destination. And it's quite nice to see that, it's not just in 4 areas, but really the 5 reasons why students choose studying in a particular destination. So what's the summary and what does a Filipino student look like, right? Basically, a particular Filipino that's planning to study in Canada is really price sensitive. So it's important that you have those scholarships, you make sure that you provide the application waiver codes, whatever area they can actually save, they really value that. You can already see as well that if you have co-op programs, and you'll notice that Filipinos choose certificate and diploma degrees as well, it is because they are migration driven. So they really choose programs that will really help them in the future, and that will really help them progress as to being a permanent resident or a resident in Canada. And last but not the least, employability. So it's very important for them. So one of the things that we've noticed pre-pandemic and now is that usually the students will just say, find me the easiest program to study. Now it's not like that anymore. They're asking for what is a particular program wherein I can excel and find a perfect job for me after I graduate from that degree. So they're really looking at it in a smarter way, and it's not just because they want to migrate, right? So students that prefer the student pathway approach into Canada really looks at it in a very holistic approach. Next slide, please. And of course, how can you help us, and how can we help you in terms of growing your institution in the Philippine market? Next slide. So in terms of opportunities and challenges, there is a lot of opportunity, and of course, challenges are always good opportunities for us. In terms of opportunities, we really want to make sure that we highlight whatever programs you have, especially for co-op programs, if it's eligible for postgraduate work permit, if it's eligible for nominees programs, right? And of course, there's also opportunity wherein the Canada Trade Commissioner can actively participate and promote our events here in the Philippines. So I know that they do Edu-Canada fairs, but it would also be nice that they will be able to help and support agency events like IDP. Of course, Fastlane is a good opportunity for you, especially if you see here in our challenges that there is a big chunk of your applications that are do-it-yourself, or as we call it, DIY students. And most often, our challenge really with students right now is the delayed release of offer letters or LOAs from your end. So sometimes it only takes a day or two for them to decide as to where they want to go. For example, if they've applied to 3 institutions and they really want institution number 1, but institution number 2 and 3 has already given their offer letter, and they end up choosing 2 or 3 because the offer letter is there, and they want to make sure that they don't lose that opportunity. Another challenge that we really want is the 10 to 12 month student cycle. Although we are aware that, you know, it really takes a lot of time before they even get to Canada. The problem now is really making sure that we are able to take care of them during this 10 to 12 month cycle. So this has been an ongoing challenge for us, but we've found solutions for these challenges. And hopefully you can really help us and support us. Next slide, please. So what did we do? How can we help you guys in terms of making sure that you are able to penetrate the Philippine market? So we have a 360 approach when it comes to reaching out to our students. And this is where we need help from you guys. So it's not enough that you join fairs or roadshows or definitely like lead generation campaigns. What we're asking from you is supporting us from end to end. What does this mean? It means that you not only join or visit the office to do trainings and join roadshows and fairs, but we also want you to take time and listen to your future students. These are conversion and nurturing activities wherein you speak to your future students that have already applied or will apply to your institution. That way, you are easily able to close those students and to make sure that we can convert those students for you guys. We've done a lot of different activities like SOP workshops, information sessions, and different campaigns to help you out in this one. But the main thing that we really need support from you guys is please help us in terms of conversion and nurturing activities. After all, these activities are for free. You just need to make sure that you make time for it and make sure that you're able to talk to your future students. Next slide, please. of course, what is like the recommendation for growth for you guys? As we've mentioned, I know that you've heard a lot of fast lane already from IDP Connect, and definitely we are sharing this from you, especially if your issue is more on the admissions process. Joining the fast lane will really help faster conversions, mainly because it helps you filter out the students that apply for your institution. One of the things that we also have issues right now is that there are some institutions that have no single point of contact. What does this mean? Especially for universities, you have a contact person for UG and then you have a contact person for PG. If you can help us really, if there are two, then it's fine, but please clearly let us know so that we can reach out to the right person correctly, as we know that this has been an issue. One of the things that we also encourage you, which other destinations do, is that actually in the website for international students, they already put the partner agencies that they have for a particular country. I've noticed that for Canada, not a lot of you guys do this, and this really helps encourage for students that are DIY, that looks at your website and needs further questions in terms of their application. We can filter it out for you, because if they have any questions and they reach out to us, then we can help process that. Of course, sustaining your investment in programs like offering scholarships, doing application waiver codes, that's a lot of help for us as we try to convert more leads for you guys. And of course, if you have not done yet, there's a lot of colleges that already exempt Filipino students for their IELTS. You can have different conditions for it, but this is really encouraged because we are an English speaking country and we do excel already in English, which has been proven as more than 10 institutions have done this already. Of course, what I've mentioned earlier, please collaborate and participate with us. We are willing to work with you guys with special activities if you want to do something special for Filipino students in terms of helping you promote yourself or the institution in the Philippine market. So not just joining fairs and road shows, but also doing info sessions in our offices, visiting our offices. That way you can really meet the students, your potential students. And last but not the least, training. As you know, as we expand further and add more counselors in the next coming years, it is important that we really schedule these trainings and retrainings to encourage counselors and really help our counselors remember your programs, your promotions, and all of that. And I know the last is really a little bit way above your budget, but I feel like the familiarization trips, like how other destinations do it, really help the experience of counselors promote your institution. Jojo and I were there last November for CBIE. We were able to do fam trips to 7 institutions, and it really helped build a better vision for our counselors and for our students. And we can really describe like the facilities, the beautiful campus that you have, all of the things that you are able to offer. But if you don't do familiarization trips, then the training is not enough for us, and we really highly recommend this. I know some institutions have started doing it this year, so we're quite excited for this one, but also counselors are quite excited for that one as well, because as you know, during counseling session they would ask, is it really cold in Canada? But counselors haven't been to Canada and they can't really explain like, oh, I can't really say that it's really cold there, how 3-degree weather feels like, right? And of course, we've really prepared, as I know that it's been a request from everyone that you want our fairs be scheduled early. And here it is. We have scheduled this. So for this 2023, we still have 3 major events. So this coming March, we have the physical fair happening on March 25, 26 in Cebu and Manila. On April, if you're not able to still fly, the virtual fair is still there, wherein we would separate it between Western Canada and Eastern Canada. And of course, we've listened to you guys. The request from you, from most institutions, is really having a separate Canadian destination fair. So we will do it in September, and we're quite excited for this to happen. Of course, it doesn't end in 2023. So if you're planning way ahead, we have the events for you guys. So we have the roadshow on January and February. We're visiting Baguio, Iloilo, and Batangas. Roadshows are basically like physical fairs, but only on a smaller scale. So they're like mini fairs. This is just a way for us to bring events to cities or areas wherein there's a high potential conversions for the Canada destination market. Again, we are repeating the March Fair, but again, exclusively for the Canada destination. And finally, on May, we will be doing a 3-city destination fair, finally adding Davao in the line of fairs so that we can really cover Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, or all parts of the country. So if you have not signed up or answered our survey, we will be happy to share that with you guys. That way we can really see your interest if you're planning to join any of their fairs, and we can provide specific discounts for you guys. And of course, let's end it with a video as to the experience of our students and what we've been doing so far in the Philippines.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Romina and Jojo, for sharing all of your insights. At this time, we're going to begin the Q&A session. So if you haven't already, please feel free to drop any of your questions into the chat or into the Q&A feature. And as I can see, we have quite a few questions here already. So I will get started with those. So the first question, and Jojo or Romina, I'll let either of you take any of these questions. What is the demand for Canadian trades and technology programs in the Philippines?
All right, I think I can answer that one. So it really depends on what the institutions offer. So even if you're under trades and technology, but as long as you offer the diploma and certificate degrees, that's the most important one. If you have the 1-year degrees, there is demand for that. So for example, we have some institutions with trades and technology that have already penetrated the market and is really doing well.
Great, thank you. What are the key selling points that really resonate most with Filipino students when you're selling them on a Canadian education?
Okay. I think I answered that as well. In terms of the key selling points, for us, it's what we've noticed is really the affordability, of course, of the costs. And if it's not that affordable, it's really the program itself. So what we've recently found out is that as long as it's close by as well, the proximity of the campus is near a particular relative wherein they can live and save money, that's also a condition for them. But in terms of the program itself, not just the tuition cost, but what they're going to be learning and the exposure that the particular institution can give them. For example, what's the number of co-op partners they have, right? What kind of support can they give when it comes to finding a job in school or outside school? Those are the things that they're starting to ask questions, because that's the key questions that they ask in the black market chat groups for studying in Canada, right? And that's what the most often things that they ask the counselors as well.
Great, thanks for your insights on that. What social media platforms are most popular among Filipino students?
So I don't know if you know, but Philippines is actually the Facebook capital. So there's like more than 40 million Filipino users.
Wow.
But definitely we're starting to look into TikTok. But we've seen in data that it's still really majority Facebook and of course Instagram.
Yeah, I think on top of that, I'd like to add that aside from us being the Facebook capital, I think we're also the mobile phone capital. Based on statistics, I think a lot of Filipinos own 2 mobile phones. So they're definitely on social media a lot. I think to add, TikTok is very popular in promotions, but in terms of conversions, I think it's still Facebook. So if you want to put a call to action and a student to respond, I think Facebook is still the most popular way to convert, along with Instagram.
Okay, good to know. So make sure you're on Facebook if you're not already in the Philippines.
Sorry, another thing, Megan, I'd like to add, and this is one thing that Romina and I experienced that was very effective in some institutions, having brand ambassadors of students who are Filipinos in their institutions. And they've started working with us in helping promote their institutions through their brand ambassadors who are present in these platforms. So IDP Philippines does have an active Facebook, Instagram, and we started TikTok. And we've actually connected with some of the brand ambassadors of some of the client institutions in co-promoting that. So it's really boosting interest in some of the institutions as well.
Great, thank you. Do you see a significant difference in applications to universities versus colleges? And this person states that they're hearing about Philippines being a huge market for Canada, but largely in the college and K-12 sectors. So what are you guys seeing on the ground?
All right, so on the ground, it's still definitely colleges compared to universities, unless your university offers diploma degrees, then you can be quite competitive like the college market. I'm seeing the question. It's hearing about Philippines being a huge market for Canada, but largely in the college and K-12 sectors. So it's also because I don't know if you know that 6 or 7 years ago, we've transitioned to the K-12 system. So there are some colleges that actually offer the diplomas and certificates that's only high school diploma required, even if they already have bachelor's degree. So that's where the misconception really is. There is some market that we haven't penetrated and we are aware of. And this is for all of the Filipinos that are work permits, but they have dependents. And then they're saying that those dependents, of course, do the bachelor route because either they're going to college or still under the K-12 system or grade school. But that's one market that we haven't penetrated, and we are focusing on it next year because we're partnering with a lot of K-12 schools next year to make sure that we can help convert for bachelor degrees. So this will also help in terms of conversions for universities as well.
Perfect, thank you. So Romina, in your part of the presentation, you emphasized conversion activities. So can you expand on this? And what are the best conversion activities for institutions to get involved in?
Okay, so when we say conversion activities, this is really a time, I know that you guys, when you guys visit here in the Philippines, it's mainly because you're joining a fair, or because you're touring and you want to meet all of your partner agencies, right? Our only request is really to make sure that a month before you travel, you let us know already so that we can help guide you in terms of like recommending like, hey, could you stay here for like 3 days and go to these offices because these are where your students are at, and we can schedule one-on-one sessions with these potential students so you can help us convert and make them choose your institution. You know, it's pretty obvious that if a student applies, they don't just apply to one, right? They would apply to 2 or 3 institutions. And sometimes meeting you face to face is a make it or break it kind of thing for them, especially if the student has not decided to which school they want to go in a particular area. So for example, um, sometimes the downside of not having a local rep is, of course, a local rep, it's easy, like, hey, there's a student that wants to talk to you, can we schedule a meetup and help us convert this student? But of course, if you're not located here, and of course you're trying to do a trip here, please make time, and so that we can schedule that conversion activity, and you can really have that conversation with those particular students so that you can help us convert those students. So sometimes it's not enough that a counselor says, hey, this institution is really great for you. I feel like it really fits your personality and all of the requirements. But at the end of the day, if they needed a better push from a particular institution, that's where they're going to choose.
Excellent. Thanks for your insights on that. A couple of more questions here. So there's a question here about Filipino students' interest and possibilities in studying in Quebec, and especially due to the French language requirements in Quebec. Are you seeing any interest in Filipino students looking to seek education in Quebec?
Yes, so if one of the slides, you can see that it was in Quebec itself, the Filipino interest, it has also increased. I can't remember what percentage it is, although it's not the main area, but the gaps that we've seen really is that our Quebec partners is not able to train us when it comes to the information for the additional requirements for visa permits. So we're able to guide them really as to the next steps for that. We've seen interest already for the past 3 years. It's just there's really a gap between learning. And as you know, IDP, we don't really process visa, right? But it's still important for our counselors to know how to guide them in terms of like what requirements do they need when they do process their visa. So there's a gap there. We're still trying to figure out how we can have that kind of training, but there is interest because at the end of the day, if a student really wants to go to Quebec, he or she will learn French and he will pass that language to make sure that they transition to Quebec.
Thank you. Yeah, and we'll be sending a copy of the recording around after the session, so everyone will be able to see the stats for the different provinces in terms of study permit stats. A question here, what will be the selling points for institutions in smaller communities? So what type of selling points should they advertise about their school if they're in a smaller community?
I think at the end of the day, it depends on what programs they offer. So for example, we have one institution. There's a small institution as well in BC. And then they opened up another campus even in a smaller community, and they open it only specifically for like 10 slots for Filipinos. But because the program is so in demand, the Filipino students were willing to apply, even if it's a small campus in a small community. It's mainly because of the program. So of course, we're gonna definitely tell you that, and we'll be honest if it really won't sell. But at the end of the day, I always say this to any institution that's trying to penetrate the Philippine market. Try it for 2 years, because it's not enough that you join one fair, right? You need to keep joining, you need to keep visiting, you need to help us promote you guys. And in that 2 years, if we find we start with 1 or 2 applications and we convert those applications, then it starts there. It always starts with one Filipino, and then you're gonna get further down the line, get more Filipinos. That's what I always say.
Sure. And I think I'd like to add a bit of that. As you saw earlier, we are expanding in the outskirts of the Philippines, where the communities, the source market is actually small communities as well, and are familiar with living in small communities and may prefer to actually study in a small community environment as well. So they may be intimidated by living in a big city. So as we expand in those markets, join us in the roadshows. And every time we visit a new city and do a roadshow, we learn a lot about the source market. And again, that's the beauty of the Philippines as a diverse source market for international students.
Right. I think one interesting thing as well to share is that New Brunswick is actually quite popular for Filipinos. Small island, but we get students there. And they go there by groups. That's what's the surprising thing about it.
That's great to hear. And we have one last question here that I'll ask, and I think this is a great one to end on. This person is planning a trip to the Philippines and would like to visit some of our offices. Who should they contact and what should they do to arrange a trip to meet some of the IDP staff?
That would be me. So anyone that's planning to travel to the Philippines, please send an email to me. I'm happy to coordinate with you whatever projects you want to do. My goal is for you to stay here for a week so that you can go to all of our offices and meet potential students and of course meet our counselors. But please send a message and I'll help you out.
Perfect. And what I'll do is in the follow-up email, I'll include Romina's address. So anyone that doesn't have it already, you can get in touch with her, and it's also on the screen as well. So in closing, I just want to say thank you to Jojo and Romina for joining us late in their evening from the Philippines, and I know at a super busy time of year, so we really appreciate that. There's obviously a lot of demand and interest from Canadian institutions in the Philippines. So thank you again, and thank you to all of our attendees. The copy of the recording will be sent out later on today. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Bye-bye.